Leave. This table's for family only. My sister smirked, pointing at a fold-out chair shoved beside the trash can. Everyone laughed as I stood there, heat rising in my cheeks. My mom looked away. Dad chuckled under his breath and cousins hid their grins behind their napkins. The waiter hesitated, confused, but I nodded and walked to the lonely chair. The smell of garbage mixed with the faint perfume of the banquet hall's flowers. My sister raised her glass mug in the glow of everyone's approval while I sat with my back against the wall. The families joked the outsider. But then when the plates cleared and dessert melted away, the bill arrived. $4,600. The waiter's eyes scanned the table. Then they landed on me. Miss, will this be on your card? I felt every stare, every smirk. They assumed, like always, that I'd pick up the tab. The responsible one, the one who worked quietly, who paid without protest, who kept the family afloat in silence. But tonight I smiled. Not my table. The room froze. My sister's fork clattered to the plate. Dad's chuckle vanished. Mom's lips parted, but no words came. The waiter raised an eyebrow, then turned the leather folder toward the head of the table. Toward my sister. And in that moment, as panic flickered across their faces, I realized something. They hadn't invited me to the table, but they couldn't eat without me. My name is Claire Dawson. I'm 32. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the one they mock decides not just to stand up but to walk away while it closed? The silence after my words stretched longer than the meal itself. The waiter shifted uncomfortably, pen hovering as my sister scrambled for her purse. Claire, stop being dramatic. Dad barked, his voice tight. Just pay it like you always do. We'll sort it out later. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. No, Dad. You made it clear I'm not family. And if I'm not family, then this bill isn't mine. Gasps rippled across the table. My sister's smirk faltered. Her hands fumbling with her designer bag. You can't be serious. I don't have the money for this tonight. The waiter cleared his throat politely. Ma'am, the restaurant requires payment in full. My sister's face reamed. She turned to Mom. Cover it. She's just trying to humiliate me. Mom avoided my gaze, whispering. Claire, please don't make a scene. A laugh bubbled up in my chest, low and bitter. I didn't make this scene. You did, when you pushed me to the corner. When you laughed while I sat alone. You wanted me out of sight. Fine, but don't expect me to foot the bill for a meal I wasn't invited to enjoy. The waiter placed the leather folder firmly in front of my sister. The sound echoed like a gavel. For once the room wasn't filled with laughter. It was filled with the weight of their own entitlement pressing down on them. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one carrying it. I was free. The ride home was a performance in itself. My sister refused to look at me as she fumbled with her credit card at the register, her voice trembling while she signed a receipt. Dad grumbled about respect under his breath. Mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin, embarrassed not by what they had done but by what I refused to do. I walked out first, the cool night air washing over me like a blessing. For once I wasn't weighed down by their laughter or their demands. I had left them to choke on their own bill, their own arrogance. But the fallout came quickly. The next morning my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. You humiliated us last night. Everyone's furious. Dad says you're selfish. Selfish. The same word they always used when I said no. I typed back, not selfish. Boundaries. Then I put my phone down and made coffee in my quiet apartment. The steam curling like a victory flag. By noon cousins were messaging me too. Why didn't you just pay? It's what you always do. Exactly. That was the problem. They had written me into a role I never agreed to. The provider, the fixer, the invisible wallet. But last night I rewrote the script. I thought of the look on my sister's face when the waiter set the bill in front of her. The panic flashing as she realized the safety net was gone. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. And clarity, I realized, was the first step to freedom. For the first time I wasn't ashamed. They were. By the weekend the family group chat lit up like fireworks. Mom wrote first. Claire, your father and I are deeply disappointed. You embarrassed us in public. Then Dad chimed in. If you want to be treated like an adult, act like one. Adults handle responsibility. And finally my sister. You ruined my birthday dinner. Everyone thinks I'm broke because of you. I stared at the screen, the messages piling up, and let out a quiet laugh. Responsibility. I had been carrying theirs for years. Rent payments, utilities, last-minute emergencies. I had slipped them money so many times I'd lost count. My sister's designer purse, the one she clutched while claiming she couldn't pay. I'd contributed to that too, though she never admitted it. This wasn't about responsibility. This was about control. I set the phone down and picked up my paintbrush, instead smearing a bold streak of red across the canvas. For years I'd muted my own colors to make room for theirs. Now I was painting loudly, recklessly, unapologetically. An hour later the phone buzzed again. A single message from Dad. Don't come to Sunday dinner unless you're ready to apologize. I smiled, dipped the brush in blue, and whispered to myself. Then I guess I won't be there, because I had finally learned something they never wanted me to see. Love doesn't demand payment. Family doesn't come with an invoice. If sitting at their table meant paying for my seat, then I was done eating there. Sunday came, and for the first time in years I didn't drive to my parents' house. No casserole dish in the back seat. No knot of dread in my stomach. Instead I spent the morning with myself. Coffee in hand, music humming, the smell of fresh paint drying in my little apartment. Around noon my phone lit up with missed calls. First Mom, then Dad, then my sister, her name flashing again and again until finally a text came through. The kids keep asking where Claire is. Do you really not care about them? There it was, the guilt card. My sister had always played it well. She knew I loved those kids. She knew they were the only reason I put up with years of mockery, late-night babysitting, and endless errands. But love for them didn't mean servitude to her. I typed slowly, carefully. I care about the kids, but I won't teach them love means being used. Find another lesson. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then silence. I set my phone aside and walked to the balcony. The sun stretched golden over the city rooftops, glowing. A breeze lifted my hair as I breathed in the quiet. It felt like stepping into a life I'd been denied for years. One where my worth wasn't measured by what I paid or what I sacrificed. For once I wasn't their safety net. I wasn't the invisible provider. I was just Claire. And maybe that was enough. By Monday, word had spread through the extended family. An aunt messaged me privately. I heard what happened at the restaurant. Honestly, Claire, good for you. They've leaned on you too long. Her words made me pause. For years I thought no one noticed. The way I always covered the check, the way I was pushed into the background, but apparently they had. People saw. They just never said it out loud. Later that day Dad left a voicemail, his voice sharp. You've embarrassed this family. Your sister's friends are talking. You think this makes you strong? It makes you cruel. I replayed it twice, not out of guilt but to absorb the irony. After years of being laughed at, dismissed, treated like the backup plan, cruel was letting me sit by the trash while they dined like royalty. That night I took out the receipt for my own dinner, a simple takeout meal I'd grabbed on the way home from the restaurant fiasco. $14.75. I taped it into my journal and wrote underneath, best meal of my life, because it was mine. The next morning my sister texted again, this time shorter, sharper. You're not family anymore. I stared at the words, letting them settle. Not family. And yet for the first time I didn't feel rejected. I felt free, because family that only values you for your wallet, for your silence, for your obedience isn't family at all. They thought their rejection was punishment, but it was liberation, and I intended to use it. The days that followed felt lighter than I ever imagined. My mornings weren't filled with dread of their demands, and my evenings no longer echoed with their criticisms. I painted until the sun dipped below the skyline, colors spilling across canvas like freedom made visible. But freedom, I soon learned, has a ripple effect. On Wednesday a cousin sent me a screenshot from social media. My sister had posted a long paragraph dripping with self-pity. Some people turn their backs on family when things get hard. Money isn't everything. Loyalty is. Comments were split. Some echoed her words, but others, surprisingly many, asked the question she'd avoided. Why was Claire always the one paying? For once the narrative wasn't hers to control. That same night Mom called again. Her tone was softer, almost broken. Claire, this is tearing us apart. Can't you just forgive your sister? Do it for the family. I let her speak, then answered slowly. Forgiveness isn't the issue. Respect is. And until you understand that there's nothing to fix. She went quiet, the line heavy with things she wanted to say but couldn't. When I hung up, I felt no guilt, only clarity. For years I thought belonging meant sacrificing myself until they noticed me. But belonging built on sacrifice isn't belonging at all. It's bondage. And I was done living in chains. The truth was out now. They could spin it, twist it, deny it, but the world had seen enough to know. And so had I. The following Sunday I sat in my apartment with the windows wide open, sunlight stretching across the floorboards. I brewed coffee, its warmth filling the room, and for the first time in years I didn't brace myself for Sunday dinner. I imagined the scene at my parents' house, the forced smiles, the tension simmering beneath the surface, my sister pretending not to feel the eyes on her. They had always prided themselves on appearances, but appearances were expensive. And this time the check hadn't landed in my lap. As I scrolled through my phone, another message appeared. This time for Mom. Short. We miss you. I stared at the words, turning them over like stones in my hand. Did they miss me, or did they miss what I gave them? Did they miss Claire, the daughter and sister, or Claire, the silent provider, the walking wallet, the easy scapegoat? The answer didn't matter anymore. I set the phone aside and pulled out my journal. On a blank page I wrote, love without respect isn't love. Family without dignity isn't family. Tonight I choose myself. I closed the book and walked to my easel. A canvas leaned against it, half-painted colors clashing in messy brilliance. I dipped my brush into a jar of yellow and dragged it across the surface, bold and bright. It felt like breathing. As the brush moved, I thought back to that night at the restaurant. The laughter, the humiliation, the waiter's uncertain eyes. And then my words, not my table. Those words had changed everything. Because they weren't just about a bill. They were about a lifetime of being sidelined, mocked, erased, and finally refusing to pay for my own erasure. The bill had been theirs to carry all along, and I was done carrying anything that didn't belong to me. I stepped back from the painting, sunlight catching on the streaks of yellow, and smiled. This was my table now, my home, my life, and no one could take the seat I had built for myself.